you can begin to take down the three things in the meantime, right? So today I'm hoping to cover the basic parts and functions of cells. Then we're going to move on to something called the respiratory system. And finally, hopefully, if we have enough time, we're going to reach respiration. So as a rule of thumb, whenever you are finished making a note in class, let me know on the chat that you are finished. So it gives me a kind of a gauge of how fast I can move in class. Next slide. All right. So don't get scared. I know it looks like a very complex diagram. I will give you enough time to draw everything in a little while. But before you get distracted drawing, listen to me for about 5 minutes. Your body, well, all living things are made up of smaller particles. These smaller particles are called cells. Now, we're going to break up everything into two broad categories. It's either you are an animal or either you are a plant. Both of them are considered living. Animal cells look different to plant cells, right? Like if you were to take some of your skin and put it underneath a very powerful microscope, you will realize that your skin or any part of your body is actually made up of smaller parts. It's like Lego blocks that you put together to get a bigger item. Animal cells, well, humans are considered animals. If you were to put a part of you underneath the microscope, you will see smaller particles called cells, and your body is made up of trillions and trillions of them. All cells, whether it be an animal cell or a plant cell, all of them have things in common. Plant cells and animal cells, both of them have something called a mitochondria. Don't let the scary word bother you yet. I will explain exactly what it is in a little while. Both of them have something called a nucleus. Both of them have something called cytoplasm. It almost sounds futuristic. Then there's something called ribosomes, which can be found in both an animal and a plant cell. And you see this little dashed line, you notice both of them have a kind of dashed line going around them. That's called your cell membrane. Now, while animal and plant cells have things in common, they also have some slight differences. Okay, so let's move something aside here. Animal cell, so let's look at the plant cell. I always like to talk about the plant cell first. The plant cell, the most obvious difference. Look at the plant cell. You all see a green wall going around it. Now look at the animal cell. Do you all see a green wall going around? Do you all see that difference? That the plant cell has the broad green wall going around it, but the animal cell does not. That wall, well, you all can clearly see it here, is called your cell wall. So plant cells have a cell wall, while animal cells do not have a cell wall. I will explain what it does just now. Inside the plant cell, there's some, you see this big white bubble, right? That's called a vacuole, not a vacuole, which I used to call it in school, and I got buffed up many times, right? It has a very large vacuole. Let's look across at the animal cell. The animal cell has only small or tiny vacuoles. In an animal cell, the vacuoles are so small. Some textbooks don't even bother to mention it. So I'll let you know that up front, right? Because you might go on a website or you might go in a textbook and you will see that in some diagrams of the animal cell, the tiny vacuoles are missing, It's because for integrated science, they will not question you on the vacuoles that exist in an animal cell. They will only ask you about it in a plant cell. Plant cells also have something called chloroplast. And the chloroplast is the actual item here. And inside the chloroplast, there's something called chlorophyll. I'll give you a piece of information here that could be useful later on. Plants are normally green. I'm talking about the leaves of the plants. Guess what gives it its green color? Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is like a liquid that the plant needs, and it's green. So anytime you see a green leaf, think to yourself, hey, it's the chlorophyll that's giving the plant the green color. So let's begin to talk about the different parts of the cell, right? I won't talk about all, I'm just going to talk about the necessary parts, and then I have a note for you. My favorite one to talk about, let me get a different color here, is the mitochondria, something I used to have a lot of problems spelling up to now, right? Whenever I'm spelling mitochondria, I literally have to copy and paste it, right? I'm horrible at spelling. Energy. Everybody here needs energy. You need energy to run, to walk, for your brain to function. Whenever you don't have enough energy, you begin to feel weak and irritated. Plants also need energy to grow, not just grow themselves, but to grow things like fruits. Believe it or not, right? Plants need energy. Guess, you ever asked yourself, where does energy come from? Which part of your body produces energy or creates energy? Well, guess what? It's the mitochondria. He produces energy. And of course, we're going to look into detail later on how the mitochondria creates energy, that thing you need to live. All cells need something to tell it what to do, just like yourself, right? You're a human being. In order to coordinate all your activities every day, to make decisions, you need a brain. Your brain is what tells you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. As inside a cell, both of them have a nucleus. I want you to think of the nucleus as the brain of the cell. He tells what the cell to do. He is the boss inside the cell, just like your brain is the boss of you. Then there's this thing called cytoplasm. I want you to think of cytoplasm as a nice jelly-like substance. It's a kind of watery, but more jelly-like. And it contains a lot of important nutrients that, the cell needs to function. Ribosomes. What does a ribosome do? Without Googling it on Google, I don't know why I said it like that. Can someone tell me, what does a ribosome do? But most likely the Form 4s and Form 5s will know. Without Googling it, just pull it from your memory. Right, so I've seen some correct answers. Ribosomes make this very important thing called protein. Everybody here, right? Everybody here needs protein. But whenever you hear the word protein, you think muscles, right? Muscles are very, very important because your body needs muscles. Believe it or not, and you see all your tissues in your body, even your heart has protein in it, right? So the ribosomes has protein. It's responsible for making proteins. Let's get to the cell membrane. You notice both the animal cell and the plant cell have this dashed line around it. And there's a good reason that I put a dashed line around it. It's because this item that's going around the cell has small holes in them. So the dashes are there to represent the small holes. The cell membranes are responsible. He's like a fence around the cell. And he's responsible for letting things out of the cell and letting things into the cell. He comes like a security guard, guarding the fence for the cell. You need his permission to leave the cell. And of course, if something wants to come inside the cell, you need his permission. All right? So, and of course, well, let me talk a little bit about the cell wall, because it comes so much in the CXC exams, okay? Tell me something, right? Your body, if someone were to remove all your bones, let's just use our imagination here. So somebody, a genie comes up to you and somebody wishes for all your bones to disappear. Try to picture that in your head. Won't you like just fall down to the ground and be kind of jelly-like you won't have any structure, right? You'll turn into jelly, right? So a lot of people are saying it. The reason is, remember, you are made up of animal cells. You will notice the animal cell is missing the cell wall. Look at the animal cell. He does not have a cell wall. A cell wall gives a cell strength and shape. So because all your bones are missing, your cells do not have any cell walls to give you structure. So you will fall down on the ground and look very cartoonish, like a ball of jelly. For you to get shape and structure, you need a skeleton. And lucky for you, you do have one. But tell me something. Does a plant have a skeleton? Has anybody here ever gone up to a coconut tree and see a skeleton inside of a coconut tree? No, that's even comical, right? To even think about that. So because plants don't have a skeleton, they need something to keep them sturdy and upright. And guess who's responsible for that? The cell wall, that green thing going around the plant cell. He makes the plant stand up and grow upwards and, hold its shape. All right. So I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes to draw both diagrams on the screen and also make sure and take down this note. They love to ask you the definition of a cell. A cell is the smallest structural and functional unit of an organism. I know that's some really fancy, complex words, but all that really means is that everybody inside the cell is working together. That is all it basically means. But you can't say it like that in the exam. In the exam, they love fancy terminology. So 5 minutes, I'm going to pause the video, and whether you finish or not, don't worry. I will give you time to screenshot it, and you can always finish it after class. And this is slide 4. Get started, guys, and I'm going to pause the video. So I'm not switching the screen just yet. Who can tell me? I discussed almost everything on the screen, but I left out one thing. Which one of the parts that's labeled that I didn't talk about? I missed something, and it was really an error. Which part did I not talk about? Look on the screen. I'll give you a hint. It's in the plant cell. The vacuole, right? The large vacuole. Now, let's give you a little insight on what it does before I write it down. The large vacuoles is like a storage system. Just like how your fridge is a storage system. Whatever food you're not eating or you plan to eat at some point in time, you put it there until you need it. So the vacuole is like a storage, but here's the bad thing. Inside that fridge, you also put waste, right? So the vacuole stores two things. It stores food and, well, it also stores waste. And because it's so large, right? Because it's so large, it helps the cell wall keep its shape, right? So the vacuole does three things. It stores food, it stores waste, and it helps give structure to the plant cell, just like how the cell wall also gives structure. All right, so guys, it's time to change the slide, and you're going to see everything written down now on each part of the cell. All right. Before you write it, right, everything that I just said, it's written in this table. Read it through first. You may not understand everything, right? But I'm going to at least give me some feedback on if you have a general understanding of what's written in that table. When you think you understand it, start writing it down. And of course, I will explain some of the more complex terms in a little while, but you have 5 minutes to take down that table. The word organelles here, right? That's a kind of fancy word, right? You know what that basically means? Remember how the cytoplasm is the kind of jelly-like substance inside the cell? Whatever is living inside that jelly-like substance is called organelles, meaning that the mitochondria, the ribosomes, right? All of those things are floating around inside the cell. So they're just called that fancy name, right? So do not get scared by that. Some of you all are asking, what does the word turgid mean? Turgid just means to give it shape or structure. If something is turgid, that means it's rigid. It has a kind of solid structure. And remember I said the large vacuole helps give the plant cell some structure with the cell wall. The two of them combined with each other will give a plant cell structure and shape because it does not have a skeleton, right? As for photosynthesis, photosynthesis is how plants make food. And that's an entire topic by itself, right? So remember, plants need food, like how we need food to grow, but we could go and make our own, we could go hunt for our food. Plants cannot hunt for food, right? They can't build a spear and run around and, shoot it at animals and cook them. So plants have a different way of making food for themselves. And the name of that process is called photosynthesis, all right? Semi-permeable just means it has holes in it. Remember I said around the cell, I had put a kind of dash line. And I told you the dashes, the spaces in between represent small openings or spaces. Semi-permeable just means whatever it is, it has small holes in it. It's just a fancy word for saying, hey, that thing have holes in it, right? Let's see what the next cell holds, right? Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about the mitochondria. Remember, I mentioned that the mitochondria is responsible for making energy. Everybody likes energy. The more energy means the more athletic you can be, the more you can move around. Everybody needs energy. Believe it or not, for your brain to work, you need energy. And I could give you a scenario to help you prove that your brain needs energy to work. When do you think better? Well, when are you better at making good decisions? When you have plenty energy or when you are tired? Right? When you have plenty energy, right? Because whenever you are tired, it basically means that you are low on energy. And your brain, because it's low on energy, does not function properly. the functionality goes down and you begin to make bad decisions. For your heart to pump, right now, everyone's heart, hopefully, it's pumping in and out, right? For your heart to be constantly working, you need energy. The minute your energy becomes too low, your heart could stop pumping and then you pass away or die. Okay? So let me go through how the mitochondria makes energy. Well, at least piece of the process. It needs two things to make energy. Let me click on the screen here. The first thing it needs, well, the first two things it needs, it's oxygen and glucose. So the mitochondria, we are going to feed it oxygen, which I think everybody knows what oxygen is, right? Right now around us in the atmosphere, there's oxygen. And of course, we breathe in oxygen. So that's how our body gets oxygen into it, by breathing. But it needs something called glucose. This term, some of you all might know, some of you all might not know. Glucose is actually a type of sugar. Now, before you start asking yourself, but I thought sugar was something you make ice cream with, like you put in ice cream or cakes or tea or coffee to make it sweet. We tend to use the word sugar a little bit wrong in society. There are many different types of sugar out there. It just so happens the only one that we really come in contact with is table or kitchen sugar. The actual name of kitchen or everyday sugar that you find in the kitchen, his actual name is something called sucrose. But nobody here is going to go to the kitchen and say, hey, mom, dad, can I have some sucrose? They'll look at you funny, right? Even though that's the real name for this sugar that you use. But it have many different types of sugars out there. I'm just going to call them out and later you'll get a note on it. It have sucrose, it have fructose, it have maltose, and guess what? It have something called glucose, which is the one you are seeing on the screen. What your body will do when you eat certain sugars, it doesn't matter if it's sucrose, maltose, or whatever other sugar that you eat, your body will break down the sucrose into smaller pieces. And those smaller pieces are something called glucose. How your body takes foods and break it down into smaller pieces falls under the topic of digestion. Some of you all may have done digestion in school already, and some of you all may not have done it. I would eventually cover that topic with you all, but just for the time being, just know that when you eat foods, it has the ability to break it down into smaller pieces, and one of those smaller pieces is called glucose. So here's what your mitochondria does. When you give it oxygen and glucose, it will convert it into four things: heat, energy, water, and carbon dioxide. Okay? So four things will come out. Look, now, I just want to, I wrote it underneath here as well. Oh, I got a different color. Glucose plus oxygen will give you four things. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Here's the thing. Different textbooks are going to have slightly different things, and you have to prepare yourself. Most textbooks will leave out the heat. Right? So in the exam, if you leave out the heat part, you're still going to get full marks. But in truth, whenever your body tries to create energy, a little bit of heat is produced. Okay? So I want you all to draw this diagram and take down the respiration formula. Respiration is the fancy name for creating energy. right? So whenever you have to start using these technical terms. You don't say, hey, the mitochondria has just created energy. To sound real fancy, you can say respiration has just been performed, meaning that energy was created. Let me know when you are finished, right? Taking down everything on the screen. So here's the thing. Whatever we are putting in, everything in blue here is called an input, right? So obviously that's a very fitting name, right? Input. So we are putting two things into the mitochondria, and the mitochondria is like this small machine. It will grind up the oxygen, it will grind up the glucose, mix them together, and then whatever you get out, obviously is going to be called the output. So you have input and output. Now, here's the thing. Some of the things that we are putting out, let's not talk about the heat, right? I'm going to leave out the heat for the time being, right? So let's concentrate on carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Anytime you have a machine and you put something into a machine, you must, hopefully you get something coming out of the machine. Now, not everything coming out a machine is useful. Not everything is useful. Look at these three things: carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Let's go through each one of them. And I just want you to let me know in the chat if it is useful or useless, right? Sorry, we use two words: useful or harmful. Carbon dioxide, do you think that would be useful or harmful? That's harmful. No, that's harmful. So I'm going to put a little vexy face there, right? The water, I'll save the water for last. The energy, do you think that's useful or harmful? Right, everybody's going to get this one correct. The energy is going to be useful, right? So the carbon dioxide is bad, the energy is good. But what about the water? Apparently, when you mix glucose and oxygen, you just get carbon dioxide energy, but you just also get water. What would you consider the water to be? Useful or harmful? In this case here, it's not useful. Most people will say water is useful, right? Because your body does need water. But here's the bad thing. You see that water that your mitochondria creates, it is ultimately end up in your lungs. Too much water in your lungs. While water is good, everybody needs to drink water. But if that water ends up in your lungs, which is where this water will end up, it will end up being a bad thing. So here's what. When the mitochondria ends up making the carbon dioxide, the water, and the energy, it will keep the energy because it needs the energy. The energy is a good part of the process. But you see the two bad things it creates? Do you think it's a good idea to keep it inside your body? Since the carbon dioxide and water are eventually going to end up being harmful, do you think you should keep it in your body or get rid of it? What's the most obvious thing to do? You need to get rid of it, right? So you all are letting me know. So don't worry. Eventually, I will show you now, eventually show you how your body will get rid of that water and how it will get rid of that bad carbon dioxide. Okay? So let's move on to the next slide here now. Before we move any further, right? I'm going to, for my explanation of how your body will get rid of the carbon dioxide and how it will get rid of the water and how oxygen reaches inside your body, I'm going to have to use some technical words. And I don't want you all to get confused. So let me explain what those technical words mean first before I move on. How much of you all have heard these two words at some point in your life? Diffusion and osmosis. Right. Well, usually when a student now starts integrated science, within the first 2 weeks of class, yeah, your teacher will go through these two things. I'm going to spend about 5 minutes on this topic for good reason. It's really, really, really easy to confuse diffusion and osmosis because the two of them are so similar to each other, students just mix it up. Here we have a container, right? Let's just pretend we have a lid on the container, right? So we have a lid, so it's a closed container. What would happen? Let's say this is a very big container, a real huge container, and somebody is standing up in this corner of the container. If someone were to spray perfume in this corner, so these are the atoms or the molecules of the perfume here, all right? So they only spray it in this corner. Try to imagine it. Will this person smell the perfume immediately? Yes or no? Will they be able to smell it immediately? The answer is no. We all know smells take a certain time to travel from one point to another point. So when the scenario or the experiment now starts, it's fair to say that this corner has plenty perfume. I use a real low quality word there, plenty. Another word for plenty, the technical word, look at underlining it here, is something called high concentration. So think of plenty as the word high concentration. Eventually, over here has a very little bit. Well, here has a little bit of perfume or no perfume at all, right? A little bit, another word is low concentration. So over here has a high concentration of perfume, over here has a little bit. What will happen over time is that the perfume will travel and meet the person. You won't even have to do anything. You know? You could leave that perfume in this corner by itself, and without you doing anything, almost like magic, it will magically make its way across to you. Because in nature, there's something called diffusion, and particles always naturally move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration without you having to do anything. You just have to watch it, and it will always happen on its own. But obviously, it cannot happen immediately. It will take a little bit of time for it to travel from this corner and gradually move to the area of lower concentration. It's almost like a ball on a hill. If you have a ball on the high part of the hill, and of course, it's leaning towards this side. Once you push it, it will automatically move downwards without you having to do anything. That is what diffusion is. Diffusion is a natural movement from higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. I want to use another technical word. You notice it moving in this direction from point A to point B. Well, I'm going to say it in a very low tech way. I could say, hey, it moving downwards or it moving that way. The direction it is moving is called the concentration gradient. So you can see, let me use it in a sentence. The concentration gradient in this scenario is from A to B. That is what concentration gradient means, the direction of motion. I want everyone to take down only this part here. The first diagram I drew and the green note only. Let me know when you are finished. Let's talk a little bit about osmosis. Oh, you notice when I'm trying to explain osmosis, it's almost the same diagram, except there's a dash wall here. So there's a wall separating section A from section B inside the container. The wall has small holes in them. Now, usually in integrated science, or whenever I'm drawing diagrams, if you see a dashed line representing something, it means it has small holes in it. And what's the fancy word for something with small holes in it? Semi-permeable. That's this word over here. So any structure that has small holes in it, most likely I'm going to refer to it as a semi-permeable membrane. Fancy word for something simple, right? So don't get freaked out. At the end of the day, whether it's diffusion or osmosis, things have a habit, right, of moving from areas of plenty to areas of a little bit. Keep that concept in the back of your head. Now, you see that movement of moving from plenty to a little bit happens naturally, meaning that you don't have to do anything. It requires no effort or energy from you. Nature will do it automatically. So here's another scenario. Let's say section A, we fill it with water. So let me get some blue here. So I fill this side with water and I fill the other side with water also, right? And on one side, we are going to put plenty salt. So I'm just going to use black for salt, right? So on side A, I'm going to put plenty salt. So the black dots here are going to represent salt. I'll label it just now, right? So a whole set of salt, we are going to dissolve it or put it in the water. So this is salt, right? Now, obviously, we have water particles. The water particles are going to represent it with light blue. So we are only going to put a little bit of water because it has so much salt. The salt is like too much for the water, in other words. How would you describe this side? Concentrated with salt or not concentrated with salt? How would you describe side A? Right, it would be very, very concentrated with salt because it's like it's overloaded with salt. It's like very salty water that you've been asked to drink. Side B now, here's what we're going to do with side B. Side B, we only going to put a little bit of salt, a few grains of salt, which means by comparison, it has plenty water. It has more water than salt. So I'm going to put a whole set of dots here. Give me a little chance here. This could be rather annoying to watch. Plenty water. Now, on this side, it has more water. And on this side, it has less water. Now, here's the thing. We're going to assume only the water can move through the semi-permeable membrane, right? No salt can move. Only water can move. Which way will the water flow? Will it flow from B to A or A to B? Keep your eyes on the water. Right, so reading your answers, and the correct answer would be from B all the way to A. Remember, I just said, in nature, particles have a habit of moving from plenty to areas of a little bit. This side has more water, plenty water, a higher concentration of water. This side has less water, a lower concentration of water. And since only the water can move, the water will move from an area of plenty to an area of little bit. For those who got it wrong, you think you understand it a little bit better now? Things naturally move from more to areas where there is less. And don't let the salt confuse you. We are concentrating on water. Osmosis is when you realize osmosis is a type of diffusion, right? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about moving from more to an area of little bit. But the difference is you're only allowed to call it osmosis if you have a semi-permeable membrane and you're talking about water only. So whenever you hear a biologist talk about osmosis, they are automatically referring to diffusion, but a special type of diffusion where there's a semi-permeable membrane and where water is the one moving, not oil, not gasoline, not, I don't know, whatever other liquid it have out there, right? Only water. And that is why it's so easy to confuse osmosis with diffusion. Osmosis is a special version of diffusion. Take down everything on the screen, the new diagram, plus the red note. Let me know when you are finished. All right. So the next thing we have some technical terms we have to know, right? You're going to hear your teacher talking about something called passive transport. And well, the opposite of passive transport is what? Active transport. Transport, as you all know, means things moving from one area to a next area. I think everybody knows what transport is, moving around. In your body, in all living organisms, there are a lot of things moving. For example, in your body right now, isn't the blood flowing around your body? Well, hopefully, because if it stops flowing, you're going to what? Die. So instead of saying the blood flowing around your body, you could say the blood is being transported around your body. It sounds funny, but you're correct. Your English is correct. And blood is not the only things being transported around your body. All the food that you eat, isn't it being transported from your mouth down into your stomach, and then your body will transport it to your intestines? How about when all that food is digested and you get things like glucose and proteins? Doesn't all of that need to move to different parts of your body or be transported to different parts of your body? Well, here's the thing. When things are being transported, it can either be classified as passive or it can be classified as active. Passive transport requires no energy. And we did 2 examples of passive transport. Diffusion is an example of passive transport, and osmosis, which we just, and I'll give you some slight examples of diffusion found in the human body, which we will go through in detail just now, right? Require no energy. And you'll be surprised how much times in an examiner will ask you, what is passive transport? And you'll need to explain it to him. And then he will ask you to give 2 examples of passive transport: diffusion and osmosis. Oxygen and carbon dioxide. Obviously, our body needs oxygen. So when we breathe in oxygen, the oxygen gets into our body, right? And of course, our body does not need carbon dioxide. So our body would need to get rid of the carbon dioxide. You see the process of oxygen entering into our blood and leaving our blood is a passive process, meaning that it doesn't require any energy. Nature takes care of it for us. An example of active transport, sorry, an explanation is active transport requires energy. You have to put energy in order to get it done. Glucose. Remember, I told you just now that our mitochondria needs glucose in order to perform something called respiration. For glucose to enter the blood, to enter our cells and to get into the mitochondria requires energy. It will not happen on its own. Your body has to invest energy into it. How much of you all know about potassium and sodium? You know, sometimes you look at your parents, right? They might have supplement pills. Do you all know that your body needs things like potassium and sodium? Too much of it is bad for you, right? But your body needs minerals like potassium and sodium, you know, to perform efficiently. For potassium and sodium to get into your bodies, it's not a natural process. It's an active process. Your body has to invest energy to get it inside the cells. And believe it or not, plants need minerals. I think everybody knows it. I mean, plants need water, but plants also need minerals to grow strong and be healthy. You see all of those minerals that it is find inside the soil? For the plants to absorb them or get it into the plants does not happen naturally. It's not passive. It's active. The plant needs energy in order to suck it in, okay? Take down everything in blue, take down everything in red. As usual, let me know when you are finished. Right, 1 second, guys. All right, so here, before you get freaked out by this diagram, right? Let me explain what's going, Let me explain what's going on in this diagram. Do you all remember what this is? What is this blue structure here? What is that supposed to be? That's an animal cell. Remember, I keep saying, right, humans are considered animals, right? So we have a lot of animal cells within our body, right? Now, our cells need things delivered to them. And of course, our cells needs to get rid of things. This red thing that's leaning up on the cell and kind of making contact with the cell is a blood vessel, right? So for the time being, this is just a blood vessel. I don't know if I spelled vessel correct, but let it slide, right? Before you all, for the Form 4s and Form 5s, right? The first thing you're going to ask me is what kind of blood vessel? There are many different types of blood vessels found in the human body. I'm going to say the most common one, something called a vein. I think everybody knows what a vein is. If you look at your wrist, or for those of, so some of you all could see all the veins in your hands. Veins, as we all know, transport blood, right? I think we all know that by now. And the doctors or your parents will always tell you, be careful not to cut a vein, because if you cut a vein, a lot of blood will come out. But there are other blood vessels, some called arteries. Now, veins and arteries are large. You can see it with your eyes underneath your skin, right? But there are smaller blood vessels, and they are called capillaries. Right? Capillaries is plural, right? Capillary is singular, but we'll get to that another time. The capillaries are very, very small. So small, they can make proper contact with the cell. So you see these blood vessels, they are already capillaries, okay? The veins and arteries are too big to make proper contact with it. Now, here's the thing. The capillaries will deliver a whole set of, things will be flowing. This come like a river. Now, and this come like somebody's house. So when stuff reaches close to your house, the good stuff, we will deliver it to what? The cell. And whatever the cell does not want, it will throw it out into the river. And the capillary will flow to somewhere where the body can get rid of it. So let's look at a few things blood has in it, right? Everyone look at the yellow block here. Blood has a lot of things the cell needs. Remember, this is your cell here. He needs a lot of things. Cells need oxygen. Remember, it needs oxygen so it can perform what? Respiration. It needs nutrients, and one of those nutrients happens to be glucose. It also needs what? Minerals like sodium and potassium. And cells need a certain amount of water, right? If you leave too much water in a cell, it is damage the cell. All the cells in your body right now is supposed to have a certain amount of water. But if it gets too much or has too little bit, it is damage the cell. And then it have things that the cells don't want. The cells do not want carbon dioxide. You all remember who just produced the carbon dioxide in the cell? Remember this guy here, Mr. Mitochondria? When he performs respiration, he creates yucky carbon dioxide, and your body does not need that. It does not need excess water. And your cells can produce something, which we'll get into much later down the line, called nitrogen compounds. You see, inside some cells, there's something called nitrogen compounds, and it's toxic to human beings, and your body does need to get rid of it. I want you all to take this down, and then we're going to go through and ask ourselves which one is active and which one is passive, right? Let me know when you're finished with everything. You do not have to take down this, right? I have no idea why I put that. I was going to explain something else, but I probably lost track, right? Let me know when you're finished with everything on the screen there. For this explanation to work, I want you to pretend that you are the animal cells. You see the thing with the eyes? I want you to pretend that is you, right? So, and things are going to be coming down the river, the blood cell, right? It's either we want it or we don't want it. So the first thing is, let the green thing here represent oxygen. Do you want it? Yes or no? Do you want it? As a cell, do you require oxygen? Yes. So what's going to happen? You're going to tell the oxygen to come here, right? Because you need the oxygen. Quick question. Will you have to invest any energy into getting the oxygen within you? Do you think you will have to struggle to get it in? The answer is no, and a lot of you all got it correct. Remember, if you look back on the previous slide, right? If you look back in your notes, when oxygen moves across into a cell, it is passive. So I'll put P for passive, right? Meaning that it occurs naturally. So that is good for you, right? I mean, you are pretending to be the cell. So you don't even have to put any effort into getting the oxygen. The oxygen will naturally move across. That is good, right? What about glucose? You need the glucose because glucose is very necessary for what? Respiration. So you need the glucose to come across. Is that active or passive? In other words, I'm asking you, as you are the cell, do you have to invest energy into getting that glucose, or will it just come on its own? Right, you all are correct. It's active. So I'll put A for active, right? Do me a favor, you spell out the words, right? P is for passive, A is for active. So I guess that is bad for you. It would have been so nice if the glucose, which you need, would just naturally move across. But too bad, you have to fight for it. Okay? So now, just as let me redraw these two things. I draw these arrows kind of bad. Not real bad, but slightly bad. Remember, the oxygen and the glucose, when it comes into the cell, it goes to the mitochondria. And the mitochondria will produce a few things. It might, what will it produce? It will produce things like water. It will produce things like carbon dioxide. It might produce other things, right? Like energy. So let's say it have carbon dioxide inside your body here now. Carbon dioxide. Does your body want the carbon dioxide inside the cell? Remember, you are the cell. Do you want the carbon dioxide? Yes or no? No, you do not want it because you need to get rid of it. So you need to throw it back into the river. It's like almost like garbage. And you say, hey, I'm just going to get rid of this garbage. I'm just going to dump it in that river, and that river could take it wherever it wants to. Will you have to invest energy into getting it out of you? In other words, is getting rid of carbon dioxide active or passive? All right, let's read through your answers here. If you look back in your notes, right, you are going to see that it's what? Passive. You will have to no problem getting rid of it. What's another thing that you do not need? Excess water. Remember, when respiration takes place, you will get things you don't want, like carbon dioxide and water. To get rid of the water, will you need to invest energy in that? Is it active or passive? No, sorry guys, a lot of you all got it wrong. Getting rid of excess water is passive. That's probably one of the easiest things to get rid of, okay? So I won't do all of them, right? I'm just doing the ones that I know will come in the exam, okay? Right? Right. So everyone update their diagram, right? Make sure and write out the word active or passive next to each one, whether it's pulling it in or getting rid of it, okay? Oh, and by the way, at this point, for the minerals, the sodium and potassium, this one is active. To get it inside the cell or to get it out of the cell is active. I spelled active wrong, but take out the thing here. Today, right? I'm sorry, for the homework, you would eventually need to go to what? The school website, the iLoveLessons. When you go to the school website, it's the easiest and most boring website you will ever come across. It's pure white. It's in front of you right now, okay? So what you need to do to find today's recording, you just have to go on summer recorded classes, as simple as that. So you click on summer recorded classes, and this is all the recordings for all the subjects for all the days. Scroll down until you see Friday integrated science. Now, obviously, the link for class is not there as yet. It will be there by tomorrow morning. So you could go through back the whole video, see what you missed, what you didn't understand, and of course, revise. Everyone is required to at least go through back the video. That's piece of the homework. Another thing, at some point in the summer holidays, we will be doing digestion. So if you, I'm just saying if you want a little head start on digestion and you want to do a little extra work, take a look at the integrated science classroom. The integrated science and the HSB classroom is the same classroom. So it's useful for HSB students. Click on the integrated science classroom. And when you scroll down, anything with digestion, you can give it a read. This is optional. It's just for those who want a little head start for the summer. And of course, you are invited to read anything or view anything in the integrated science classroom. So to summarize that homework, I'm going to put a slide on the screen. Please take a screenshot so you don't forget what the homework is. Also, my name, some of you were asking my name, I'll get to all of that just now, right? Right. Another thing is we have space in class for some people, right? I'm very, very, very happy with how class went today. Let me just stop the recording, right?